there, welcome to today's Business Growth Club show. We are so pleased to have you here. The theme is growth marketing.
We're talking about actions and consequences today.
It's all about purpose.
Driving business growth with using KPIs.
We're talking money mindset.
The Growth Club, I mean, not to oversell it, but it's so well organised. So yeah, it was totally invaluable.
The Growth Club, coupled alongside with the Masters that I'm doing at Strategic Leadership at the moment, both of those things happening collectively have definitely transformed, and the Growth Club did have a massive impact for our business.
What is it that attracted you to come to the Growth Club in the first place? Let me just ask you to start off with that.
Well, because it was the two of you, basically.
Oh, that makes me smile every time I see it. And making laugh is just so infectious.
Absolutely.
Awesome energy, hasn't she? So I'm really rocking out our new music as well. I'm still enjoying that. And welcome to the Business Growth Club. We're here. I think it's our second show of 2021. We had our first show. Yeah, first show last week. So huge welcome. Love to know how you're getting on, how your year has started. And it's probably not started in the way that many of us might have hoped it would, but we're here nonetheless. And we're looking forward to this week's show, which is part 2 of how to build your roadmap for success in 2021 and beyond. So how are you doing, Mahmood? What sort of week have you had?
Really good. I mean, it's been full on, as it normally is at this time of year. We're wearing 3 hats, wearing my Brexit hat, wearing my tax return hat, wearing my COVID hat, wearing my Business Growth Club hat, and I snuck an extra hat in there, by the way. That's 4 hats. It's been good, up and down, roller coaster. I pretty much kept on track second week in terms of everything I set myself out. Am I hearing a bit of feedback coming in through my mic? I don't know.
I don't know. I can't hear any, but if you're listening and you're getting any feedback, let us know. But the sound looks okay where I am, but hopefully that's better. And I'm pleased you corrected yourself there with the number of hats, because you are the numbers rock star.
And I was really pleased that you managed to actually see sound waves as well. That was really good as well. Just pick up what Joe was saying. Okay, so we have a commitment. We made a commitment when we first started the broadcast of the Growth Club. So our mission is give you value, hopefully entertain you, give you some good takeaways in terms of business knowledge and growth, minimise the jargon, minimise the BS, and ultimately take some value from the shows.
Yeah, we really want to do stuff that makes a difference. We're sort of 2 brains are better than 1 on your business, and we're here to help, and we want to talk about the nitty-gritty, the stuff that really matters in business, not the fluffy stuff around the edges, not the 6-step process that will get you to however many million overnight. We're real business practitioners, and we're here to help you. So big welcome. If you're watching on replay, huge welcome to you as well. And for everybody, we'd love to know where you are, what you're doing, how your year has started. Ask us anything you like in the comments, whatever you like, and we will do our best to answer. So we'll get started. Has 2021 started for you? Have you stuck to the things you said you were going to do, Mahmood, this year so far? Or
yeah, pretty much I mean, I don't normally make resolutions because the resolutions are there to be broken. But in terms of the path I set myself, I'm 2 weeks in. So, I would hope for some modicum of success there. But yeah, pretty much on track, pretty much where I want to be. So I'm full of optimism for 2021. I'm always full of optimism every new year. You reset the clock, you grab it by the scruff, you move forward. It's pretty interesting out there for a lot of people, but I still think business is being done. A lot of opportunities, lots of things that you can be really pleased for and grateful for. So yeah, it kicks off very well for me. What about yourself, Joe?
Yeah, I think so. It's been full on. I mean, as you know, as did you. We kept going through Christmas and New Year with different projects, didn't we? And I think I'm feeling a sense of optimism for 2021. I know we're in a really challenging place right now, but there's light at the end of the tunnel with vaccines in April and so on. So yeah, I'm feeling that at least we can see an end to all of this.
Bit of a light.
And it's about making the most of what we've got now, enjoying the here and the now, and the working in the moment, really. So, but we've got some great stuff. Last week we talked about the first part of a roadmap, and we talked through some of the things that we do with our Business Growth Club members around setting a vision, getting those great ideas out there and testing those ideas, looking at KPIs and having a sort of a targeted, progressive performance over the year, and so on, didn't we? And this week we're about, well, what do you do when you've done those things?
Yeah, it's a bit more of I suppose last week was full of substance. This week is more substance, but it's about some numbers. So it's about the financial story that you present as well. It's about delegation, the art of. So delegation as opposed to abrogation. It's also about efficiencies, those little tips that we can share with you to, make it easier. So, this is not a linear thing, by the way, everyone. So this is not a straightforward, do X, as Joe said. This is not a 6-step program to get your yacht by next week, a 6-step program to retire into some nice Caribbean island. Not that you're allowed to travel anyway, but it's a bit of hard work application. So I think we're just going to put some more flesh on the bone for part 2 of the growth map.
Yeah, and consistency is really key as well. So having that plan, and we talked about knowing where you want to be and then having all the steps in place to get from here to there. But, those plans should be more and more focused the nearer to the present day you get. So the further out the plan is, the perhaps more high level, the more directional it is. But make, really specific plans for what you're going to do tomorrow as best you can, and for the week and the month ahead. And so on. So, and having consistency, I think, a big part of it is just showing up really consistently and delivering your own plan, the actions, the inputs that you're committing to.
Yeah, I mean, just to pick up on that, don't anyone who's listening to this think we're talking about you have a plan, you stick to it, there's no room for manoeuvre. This is not a straitjacket, it's a framework. It's a vision that you've got to say, this is the path I've got to follow. So you will have bumps in the road. You will have little times when you think, it's difficult to move forward. You might go backwards, you might go sideways. But as long as you stick to that, adapt and be agile, I love that word. I think I first really picked it up in the context of planning when we first got together last year, Joe. So it's about agility, it's about modifications. But as I said, turn up each day, and over a period of time, the accumulation of those efforts build into something really quite substantial.
Yeah, and let us know, you're watching now, let us know what your big plans are for this year. Is there anything you want to share? Have you got any big ambitions, anything you might have wanted to do last year that you didn't do for whatever reason, good reason, that you're really focusing on? Because it's also really important to get excited about plans, do things that really get your blood flowing and your heart pumping, because you're looking forward to getting stuck in and making it happen. Yeah.
I mean, I think athletes do that as well. Anyone at the top of their game, they always visualise that, appearance at Wembley, the release of their first album. If it's a sports person, it's that turning out onto Wembley. So whatever your Northern Star, whatever your end point is, doesn't have to be as grandiose as that. Share it with us. Let us know what it is. What is it you're aiming to be or to get to by the end of this year? Yeah.
Strategic rehearsal is one of the phrases used for that sort of visualization, that rehearsal, because apparently from a neuroscience perspective, our brains don't know the difference between something, experience that we're imagining and something that we've actually done. So we can really practice the outcome we want, see ourselves giving that presentation or doing that task or sitting down with a coffee and setting the KPIs. We can actually use that to our advantage. I like to work in sort of 10 to 12 week chunks as well. So I'll set really quite detailed plans for 10 to 12 weeks that are still agile, because a lot can happen, as we know, don't we, in 10 to 12 weeks.
I will do, yeah.
And sort of have the year mapped out at a high level, but work in those sort of 3-month sections. 90 to 100 day plans work really well.
It's interesting. I mean, I do pretty much a similar. I always do a rolling 12-month, for example, financial plan cash flow. And literally I update that probably every day, every other day. Obviously, some things will change, some things will alter. But it's always good for me, on a personal perspective, just to see that update progress here and sort of measuring things as they go along as well. Doesn't always happen, but, I think you've got to sort of set those markers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how would you advise that businesses plan out their numbers and think about their cash flow with, when they're planning for what's going to come, with all the different, I guess, uncertainties with what's around right now, what advice or tips would you give them?
I think 2 or 3 things. I mean, before we talk about the mechanics of it, I would probably get your story straight. So think about, I wouldn't even worry about numbers in the beginning. I know that sounds really quite a bit of a contradiction, but I think, what is your business story? What is your endpoint? What's your route map? Because once you know clearly what you're aiming to do and how you're going to get there, then you can translate the activities. So I'd be thinking about activities. What does that mean in terms of impact? So what does that impact mean in terms of marketing activity? What does that translate it as costs, revenue, timings? And then once you've got your financial story, the numbers reflect, you can overlay that the activity. And then I would build that framework about, typically working backwards. Some things we know with certainty, like cost commitments. We know what we might have to invest at certain points in time, but what we're planning to. I would then think in terms of the modelling of the money, what's likely to come in. The money that you're not certain about, that's got some degree of question mark, I wouldn't even worry about at this stage. So really, business story first, financial story reflects that activity. And that's how I would probably start off the process. Yeah,
it's great advice. And it works in practice. I mean, we've got a whole module around that, haven't we? The financial forecasting. How do you forecast sales, in a different changing environment, and also when you're doing something new? So we cover that with our Business Growth Club members. And also, how do you factor in costs, particularly when costs might be changing and or when you're doing something new? So there's a number of variables, and it actually feels really good. So I think people think a sales forecast or a revenue forecast, particularly for something new, is like a target, where in fact it's more about what you hope to achieve and what you would expect to achieve, to give you some guidance in terms of how much to spend in getting there, and when you think the money will come in, and what sort of return you're going to generate. So it's really about sort of testing the water and making investment decisions as well, isn't it? These numbers aren't just targets, they're helping you make decisions.
I think that's a good point, Joe. And I think because we spend a lot of time on the Growth Club at the beginning, in people investing lots of time and energy, instead of saying, I want to be rich, I want to do X, you get driving that down into more detail, more prescriptive detail. It then says, I want to grow my business by X. That's my end goal. I need to get X number of customers. How are you going to get those customers? What are you going to do? The more you drill into that detailed story, the more you can say that actually you said you're going to do this. What does that actually mean in terms of cost implications, revenue implications? And one thing I would say, is really quite cathartic about doing a financial story, is a lot of people inhibit themselves and think, I can't do that because it's going to cost too much money. But once you do something like a cash flow, you then look at something to say, right, I'm going to commit to invest now. If it goes the way I think it will go, then that's going to generate value maybe 3 months, 4 months, 5 months to the future. And I can see it working over a period of time. And that's quite a liberating, I think, insight if you go down that route.
Yeah, and we're big believers, aren't we, of minimum viable product or minimum viable proposition for services, which is test things, invest. You're doing something new, invest the minimum, try and test it in a as safer way as possible. Nothing's risk-free, but in a way that is affordable. So you get the feedback, you can make improvements, invest again and go again, and really sharpen and accelerate that growth curve. But we help people with that, and they really enjoy it actually when they get stuck in and feel quite proud of what they've achieved. And it's not just new businesses. These are people who have had businesses for a very long time, start to see their businesses with a different pair of specs on, from a different perspective, and find new opportunities and new ways of doing things, which I always love.
Yeah, and I think that there's some great comments coming in, which we'll share in a second. But I think being that part of that community where you're talking to other people, it's quite liberating, because you think actually other people are thinking the same as you. You're sharing that idea. And I think if you try and do it in isolation, which I suppose you can as a desk-based exercise, it's limiting but achievable. But I just think working with like-minded entrepreneurs, it has a lot to bring to it.
Yeah, definitely. So that's what Janice is saying here. She says, struggling to run my business single-handedly. I work better as part of a team, feel more motivated that way. And we've had some fantastic solopreneurs actually as members of the Business Growth Club who've come and joined and really got that sense of team from everyone around. And we had, we've had Hannah Bell on the show, who's actually, as a result of, of what, I mean, it's her hard work. It's not us. It's Hannah. But she's actually published her book. That's something that was a lifelong dream for her. Actually, as one of the outcomes that she got from the work she put into the Business Growth Club. So yes, if you like to be part of a team, then you'll certainly enjoy the community environment that we have.
And without going too much detail on Hannah's story, and I think it connects with what Janice was saying, is that going through that process, when you actually look, I've got limited resources in terms of me and other things, it makes you think about the focus where your energies are best served, about what you need to bring in. I know we're going to be talking about, tips about getting things done, delegating and outsourcing. So, yeah, Richard, that's a really excellent ambition. So happy birthday, or belated birthday to you, Richard. Now that you're an old man participating and joining us tonight. So what have we got here?
Don't say old, because Richard's a year younger than I am.
Well, I'm much older than you, Joe and Richard. So,
You're allowed. Okay. Yeah. So new warehouse can march using new space to add as many spokes as we can to the World Max wheel. That's fantastic.
I love that.
Yeah. Brilliant. So love to know, Richard, in terms of any other plans for how you're going to grow once that's all in place, and we can take that offline if you want to share that. So that's brilliant, really, really good. What a great plan. And I think it's really, sorry, after you, Mahmood.
I insist, after you, Joe.
I think it's really great that Richard's continuing to invest and keep the business moving forward. And I think March is a great time as well for a new warehouse. Good timing, good call.
So anyone who's coming on, we're talking about end of year goals and objectives, what you want to be. I know, Janice, you're talking about running a business single-handedly. If you've got any aspirations where you want to be at the end of the year, please do share them.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know as well, are there any particular aspects of doing things? I think sometimes it's juggling. We feel like we've got to do everything ourselves. And Janice, you say you work better as part of a team, but, outsourcing, working with virtual team members can be a really cost-effective way of growing, which is actually one of the things we cover as well in the Business Growth Club. It's on our roadmap, isn't it? It's about looking at the tasks and the things that you're doing, where you're spending your time, and putting in place better processes. It might be an automated process. It could be that you outsource some of that process. Quite often people actually think, why am I doing this at all? Yeah. So and it releases time and energy and effort and cost for you to invest in spending time doing other things. So that's something that is really, really interesting to do. We've got sort of a little activity that we do. It takes about 20 minutes where you think something through step by step and look at how you could really refine it and make it as effective as possible.
I mean, I think a lot of people probably don't necessarily actually have the time to actually sit down and think about what they're actually doing in their businesses on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis here. So a lot of us, will probably be spending energy and time doing things which aren't productive, aren't a good use of our time. And actually by investing perhaps in technology, different systems, workflows, getting other people to help you, you liberate your own time and you increase your capacity for delivering as well.
Yeah. And Mahmood, you and I have talked over the last couple of weeks about, content repurposing and processes for all sorts of things back of house. And just having somebody who's really good at that and can do it quickly and efficiently and well. And I know you've got someone helping you do that, and I've got someone who's coming on board for me as well. But it's going to save so much time as far as I'm concerned. And I can focus then on producing content, on getting stuff out there, instead of, faffing around in the background at weekends trying to
100%.
do things I'm not great at.
Yeah, plus also, as I said, I still think it comes back also to this, what is a good use of your time? What is it your customers want from you? What is it you're bringing to the party? And support systems, administration, work that takes you forever to actually understand, sometimes it's just that thing that actually says no. And I think for me, it's also that mindset of actually thinking about investing in your business, as not just looking at things as costs all the time.
Yeah. And if everything is solely reliant on us or on, a handful of people, if all the ideas are only coming, from the same place and all the work is coming from the same place, it doesn't really help with business resilience. And it doesn't help with ability. Yeah.
It's high risk as well. Just as much as if you depend on one single customer for everything or one single supplier, that's a big risk flag. And if you're the person who's doing everything, like the octopus, that's a very high risk element you're introducing into your business.
Yeah. So if you're looking to scale, and if you're, particularly if you are, whether you're a small business, a solopreneur, or whether you employ a large number of people, think about how efficient and effective are your processes this year, and what can you do to really streamline things and take some cost and time out. And also, you can develop other people by giving them the opportunity to get involved in doing some stuff as well.
Perfect. Yeah, well, that's a great point there. So we talked about the finances. I always think that, businesses is a combo, isn't it, of the technology, the humans and all the rest of it. And leadership, you as the leader of your own business has a big part to play. And we've talked about this quite often, Joe, in terms of leadership being a big dynamic, a big component of success. What about your thoughts about what people can do to actually improve their own leadership?
Leadership starts with self-awareness and really being honest with yourself about who you are, what you're great at, where you can improve. It's about being open. It's not about being closed and sort of trying to protect how you think and what you do. It's important to have confidence in what we do and to be, really championing the ideas and things that we have. But if we think that we know it all, we're the only ones who can do things, that other people's views aren't relevant, then we can sort of close ourselves off to a lot of opportunity and a lot of growth as well. And I think particularly when we're aiming to scale a business, as leaders, we're the role models for the people around us, whether they're people who work with us, as virtual, outsourced team members, or whether they're direct employees. Then they're looking to us in terms of, how we expect others to behave. Comes back to how we behave ourselves. So this leadership piece is really, really important. And I think leadership capability, leadership vision, leadership competence is probably one of the biggest barriers to growth for any business, and especially for a small business. In a big business, you've usually got a number of leaders, who can bounce off each other, challenge each other, and stretch the business. But when you're working in a small business environment where maybe one or two people are calling all the shots, if they're not listening and tuned in, it can really stymie progress.
Yeah, I have seen it in larger corporates. I know what you're saying. I agree with that. I've also seen it in larger businesses where you've got very dominant leaders who won't actually be receptive to any input from their senior management team. I think, and that, again, reinforces this whole idea about the business growth club. It's the idea of planning, because the idea of planning says everybody buys into the end point, everybody agrees the route map that you're taking there. And if you've got that focus and clarity about the direction you're going to be taking, it's so much easier, I think, then to lead yourself and lead everybody else in your team as well.
Yeah, and I don't think business is a democracy, by the way. Some businesses they're set up to be a democracy. If that's your structure and the way that people are rewarded, fantastic. But most businesses aren't set up to be a democracy. And even when businesses are, everybody's not going to be, it's not about consensus 100% of the time. Because as leaders, if we try and please everybody all the time, we'll end up pleasing nobody all the time. So it is about actually sometimes making unpopular decisions, but it's doing that with the right information and thinking about it in the right way. And I just think with the right leadership, input, support, stimulus, decision-making tools, we can make better decisions and do so much more for our own businesses, for ourselves, as well as the people around us.
Yeah, I mean, leadership isn't really about a popularity contest. I mean, if that's what your thing is, then you're really going to find yourself, you're going to be slightly disrespected by other people as well. What people like is they like clarity, they like certainty, they like a certain degree of equity and fairness. I've seen it described as a benign dictatorship that you might have. But ultimately,
Yeah, I'm really not keen on that at all, because I think benign dictator is a bit, I don't know, I think it's a bit patronising. I think we want people in our businesses who are intelligent, adult human beings who bring skills and capability to the party. So I think about being a leader, it's about really respecting and valuing the contribution that other people make. It's about helping them drive their own performance. And sometimes that might be about, challenging them when they're not performing as well as they could, but making sure you support them in the right way. So I think it's really adult to adult, but
absolutely. But I think for me, in terms of when I've heard it referred to as benign, ultimately at the end of the day, the leader is the one who has to make that final decision about the direction in which their business is going.
Somebody's got to call it, haven't they? Somebody's got to make the decision, definitely. Yeah. And but we can do that with compassion and humanity and with consideration of others as well. And sometimes, tough decisions have to be made as well. So
yeah, I mean, if you don't, you want to create the right work environment, the right work culture where because people are one of your single biggest assets. It costs, I mean, purely in economic terms, it costs 3 times as much to recruit new staff than it does to keep existing ones. Mm-hmm. You need to have that right culture where people are feeling valued, people feel they can contribute. And I think, as you put it yourself, it's about ultimately making the call where you need to, and not actually just delegating and abrogating that responsibility to somebody else.
Yeah, and we've all got blind spots, like all of us, self included, probably as many, if not more so than anybody else. And I think what we can do as leaders is really try and shrink that blind spot by really listening and to what people are saying, the feedback we're getting, and thinking that through. And it's not about agreeing with all of that either, but sometimes thinking through, is how we're being perceived and is our performance in reality, matching what we think, how well we think we're performing, or how well we're coming across. So all of that stuff is fascinating, but if you can unlock that, and particularly with leadership confidence,
it's powerful.
Because the other side of this is actually sometimes people hold themselves back because they don't feel confident to try that new thing or make that move or make that decision that they really do want to make. And just to boost confidence and building self-confidence as a leader can really transform business performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got loads of interconnected themes in there from, in terms of risk appetite, in terms of the attitude, and all that behaviour. But whichever way you carve it up, the human side, the leadership aspect, is a real critical part of your business success.
Yeah. It is such a strong determinant in small businesses of how well those businesses do. Can I just bring Richard's comment up? Is that okay?
Yeah, let's flag it.
Comment from Richard, if I can click on it. There we go.
Oh, I've just lost it again. There we go.
There we go. So Richard says, looking to do a bit of the same to grow and a lot of new aspects to expand. That sounds really positive and exciting, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Richard's a positive guy anyway, so we can see that over the last few weeks with the comments there. So I think I'm trying to think about how many years Richard is in his business. Richard, remind us, how many years has World Max been going for now?
Yeah, it's been a while, but it's good that it's really good to hear business is going well and expanding. So fantastic, really, really well done. Because this, it is about continuous expanding and stretching, and we've got to update our skills as business owners as well. The customers require different things from us. The world around us is changing. Technology is different. We've got to be always learning, not just looking for opportunities, but always upskilling ourselves to make sure that we do the best job we can. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I've signed up for a couple of things myself this year, actually.
Do tell.
I mean, I love learning anyway. So but actually one of the things I've signed up for, and it's with a group of American universities, is mindfulness and mindful leadership. And it's about the neuroscience of mindfulness and how being more present can help with performance, not just for ourselves, but also the people around us. So that's a short thing, 6 weeks, but it's just important that we learn new things. And if there's a little bit of something there that can really help me move forward, I'm up for it. What about you?
Yeah, well, I come from a background of learning. I used to be a teacher and an educator for many years, and I've loved learning since whenever. So it's great. Actually, it's weird you say that about mindfulness and leadership, Joe, because I'm embarking on a bit of a research project myself on mindfulness, but when it comes to number phobia, in terms of that disconnect with businesses and numbers. I'll share more of that later on. But yeah, I think if you make the decision in your own mind that you've learned everything and that there's nothing more to learn, then you're going to go on a downward spiral. But within what you're learning, and I think it's important not to be scared by this, is you still want to deliver good values to customers and serve them well. That's not changed over the last few decades. How you do that has changed. Customers, you still got to communicate with people. The mechanism for doing that is changing, but the underlying ethos still stays the same. So, it's embracing, it's positive, and it's here. We can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, and I just think our minds as leaders are, one of our, the people around us are. Yeah, I don't like to think of people as an asset because that makes them sound like something that we own or a resource or something like that. But people around us make a huge difference. But our own minds have so much potential if we use them right to be creative, make great decisions, make confident moves, and try things and be progressive. And I think a lot of the time people are working around the edges and learning a bit of this and a bit of that. But actually, if we can learn how to use this a lot better with neuroscience, not woo-woo, airy-fairy stuff, but stuff that is proven to work, then I think, that's, and I find that really exciting, actually, because we can all be, developing our minds, can't we?
Absolutely. At the risk of going down a blind alley here, I actually look at it the other way around. I actually think we should embrace people as assets, because I look at assets as resources. So it's not about an ownership thing, but historically, the people that we have in our businesses, we tend not to recognise in terms of the impact on our own businesses, apart from anecdotal evidence. So I think the more we recognise that individuals are assets, it means the culture is you look after those resources, you look after those assets, you maintain them, you invest in them, you nurture them. And therefore that has the greater good for your business as well as their own well-being.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. I think it's just, a photocopier is also an asset, a crane is an asset, Richard's new warehouse is an asset, and then people are an asset. I just think they are some very, very special assets that have a category, don't even have a category, but they're very unique and individual. So I think we're in alignment there. And Richard said it's been going for 3.5 years.
So that makes really it 6 months. And that round about June, July should be anniversary time, 4 years.
Very good. That's impressive, isn't it? So as soon as a business becomes 3 years old, it stops being a startup, or it starts being a small entrepreneurial business, and it starts to become established after that 3-year point. It's a really, really critical point, and it's something that should be celebrated. I think
statistically it's the first. I think I did some stats on this. The first 5 years, I think, is typically what they call the planning phase, and therefore not a great deal of financial value is created in that early stage, because you're just setting up, establishing, building up a new market. So it's that period afterwards, but you've gone through the wobbly phase, which is really, really positive.
Yeah. It's that 0 to 3 years of surviving and getting into the thriving mode, isn't it?
Brilliant. And that as well.
Yeah, and that as well. It is. So other things. So we've promised everyone a roadmap. We have gone all over the place today. I've enjoyed the conversation. I hope everybody watching has enjoyed it too, or listening has too. So
we've covered a fair bit of what we were going to say. So we're talking about delegation. Yeah. What do you like as delegating, Joe?
What am I like at delegating?
Yeah.
I actually have got a small program that I teach on how to delegate and how to delegate well. I think so. Delegation. Long answer to a short question. delegation, there's two key things to consider. Firstly, how experienced is and motivated is the person that you're delegating to. So if you're delegating to someone who's super experienced in what you're asking, you would delegate very differently to someone who is very inexperienced in what you're asking them to do. You need a different delegation strategy. And the idea is to build your delegation strategy so they go from being inexperienced to completely independent, and they can do it on their own. And there's sort of also the level of motivation comes in as well, because you can have somebody really experienced but low motivation, somebody who seems really keen and you think, yes, I can let them get on with that, but you can't if they're completely inexperienced. So it's about balance, really thinking about what is the level of experience, how interested are they in doing this, and so on, and how to communicate. And I think delegation isn't abdication. So you're still responsible and accountable, and it's about having regular check-ins and making sure that people, feel supported, especially when they're doing something, for the first few times. But also you can use things like standard operating procedures. Woohoo! There we go. That sounds exciting, doesn't it? How sexy are those? They are sexy, because your standard operating procedure is where you get those repeatable things that you do in your business written down so that anybody can pick them up as a piece of paper, look at them online, maybe even watch the screen recording of how to do an invoice or whatever it is on video, and they can follow that and they can do it for themselves. So I think I'm a pretty good delegator in the main, but when I'm busy, I can slip a little bit. So I'll have to watch that.
Right, okay, that's a nice.
Is that all right? Long answer, short question. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, but delegating is important, and we are not always the people who know best. We're not the only ones who can do certain things. As entrepreneurs, we need to give up some control.
Yeah, you need to avoid that micromanagement. I think if you are going to delegate, I delegate more so in my own business now than I did, 26 years ago, understandably. But I think you've got to understand the process. You've got to have an awareness of what's involved in that. Think clearly about what the skill sets are, the requirements. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, business people, when they look to delegate work, they think in terms, they make that initial judgment that says, actually, it's going to be just as quick if I do it myself. But you've got to make that leap and do it. As you said, you've got to have that trust, you've got to have that confidence, but you've got to understand what the job itself involves, because you've got to explain to somebody what they've got to do as well.
And I think that's, if you've got that mentality of it's quicker to do it myself, if it's a one-off, it might be quicker to do it yourself. If it's never going to happen again, just do it yourself. If you've got time to do it yourself. If it's something that happens, regularly, that needs doing more than once or twice, then do it yourself, but record yourself doing it. So that could be writing down every step. It could be talking through it on, and voice recording it, or recording what you're doing on screen if you're doing something that needs, you're doing on your computer or whatever. So record it. And then the next time it needs doing, you've got the basis of something to give to somebody else and say, this is the process I follow, and talk them through it, but then they've got a resource and it won't take you any time at all.
I think it's creating that time, isn't it, to actually make the effort to do the initial. So it's a bit like, you've got to take the time to write down a sort of manual, a sort of way of doing these things. But yeah, I think it's also that we're coming back to what we said at the beginning about leadership and self-awareness. There's a lot of things that to grow your business, you actually need to grow yourself and to develop your own sort of mindset and approach and how you do things. Yeah,
definitely. And, if you're doing a job anyway, write it down as you go, step by step, and it will save you so much time in the long run. And I think the other thing to do for 2021, if you've not done this already, is to sort out your how you communicate what you do in your business, your value proposition, and what's unique about you, your elevator pitch. A lot of people summarize stuff in loads and loads of words, and they think out loud when they're talking about their business, but you need to be able to sort of nail it in a sentence or two. So, and again, that's something that we work on and practice and get honed, so people actually feel really, really good about their elevator pitch. as well. So yeah, some good things there, and just keep your plan refreshed and updated. As we've said, stay agile.
Absolutely. So look, folks, if you want to find out a bit more about what me and Joe have been talking about, not just this week, for the previous weeks, finger pointing, that means look in the what do you call it, a ticker tape type thing
Down there.
Even if you're not quite decided whether you want to join us on this journey on the Business Growth Club, which is time to start in 2 weeks' time, join our mailing list. You'll get some tips emailed to you on a regular basis. It's a bit of a bargain basement anyway to join the Business Growth Club. I don't think any person who joined the first cohort was disappointed. You get 2 business brains. You get lots of resources. You get lots of ways of actually delivering something that's actionable.
And you get us live every week.
Well, what more could you want?
And it's about you and your business. So it's you on a Zoom call with us, and a really, really small group of people. And we're zooming in literally into how we can help you grow your business on some really specific topics that you've had time to think through and work through before you come as well. So yeah, come and join us.
Okay, let's conclude with a question from Richard.
So, Joe, I'm lucky to have excellent staff, and I've delegated jobs which I don't know how to do myself. Is that a bad thing? No, that's a brilliant thing. I mean, I think as a leader, it's about surrounding yourself with people who are better at what they do than you are, ideally. And sometimes we have got to, if we're working with apprentices or new people, people from outside our business, we've got to teach them how, in a way, and train them in how we work. But no, if they can get on with it and they're great at it, that is fantastic. And I know you've put a smiley face at the end of that. So I think that's not a bad thing, and it's not.
Just make sure you've got some good idea of what your expectations and the outcomes are. So you've got some way to measure that progress, some way to say what they're doing. I mean, in a different world, I've seen people who allocate and delegate responsibilities, whether it's finance, IT, but they don't actually keep an eye on what's going on. So just have some, way of reviewing, monitoring. But yeah, it's a great thing. Invest in it, and it will reap good rewards for you. Yeah,
it's a bit of just overarching governance to make sure it's all going the way that you want it to. And I think that's really, really great.
Fantastic. So what's your week ahead looking like, Joe, before we tell everyone what's coming on next week?
So week ahead is just continuing to be really busy, getting a head start onto 2021, and looking forward to seeing you again next Tuesday, Mahmood. So
you want to be careful how you say that.
Yeah. So what have we got next week?
That is a good question, actually. I think with next week is we're going to continue on. I know we said this is part 2, so I want us to round up the growth map, talk more about the hows, and the whys. I think we can pick up the elevator pitch next week as well. Perhaps share some thoughts about how that's put together, what the background of the story is, and about conciseness and how that really leverages into communication as well.
Yeah, and the value proposition, which informs the elevator pitch, because you can get something down to a really short, punchy thing, but if that short, punchy thing is based on not much thought and not particularly relevant to the people you're looking to communicate to, then it's not going to do you any favors. So we think about what are the ingredients, what's really special, and how to distill that, and then you can communicate that out as well. So really enjoyed tonight. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for everyone's company. Have a fantastic week, everyone, and we'll see you all next week.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye. Let's play out with some beautiful music.
Hi there, welcome to today's Business Growth Club show. We are so pleased to have you here. The theme is growth marketing.
We're talking about actions and consequences today.
It's all about purpose.
Driving business growth with using KPIs.
We're talking money mindset.
The Growth Club, not to oversell it, but it's so well organised. So yeah, it was totally invaluable.
The Growth Club, coupled alongside with the masters that I'm doing at strategic leadership at the moment, both of those things happening collectively have definitely transformed, and the Growth Club did have a massive impact for our business.
What is it that attracted you to come to the Growth Club in the first place? Let me just start off with that.
Well, because it was the